let's jump in. So I am excited to come to you today and a couple of us here from Access4 to take you through lots and lots of great big changes in the unified communication space of late. So what we're looking to do today is take you through the latest wave of opportunity that's coming to you, lots of different business challenges that you can solve for your customers, and lots of things happening here at Access4. So the agenda for today, we've got a bit of an intro, so we'll tell you a little bit about ourselves. Then we'll go through looking back on the industry. So where communications has come from since the industry opened up, outside of the monopoly that we all know of the big guns. Then 2025 industry trends, very excited to take you through that. Lots of great innovations that have come through, think AI buzzwords and integration of business tools. Automation is a big one as well. What we're seeing, so obviously in our world, we interface with quite a large partner base. So there's lots of conversations that we have with partners and quite often their customers as well. So I feel like you'll get a fair bit of value about that section too. Strategy. So with all the changes and new things, what do you do with that information? How can you start to prepare your teams? Where do you start to take unified communications to market? Some of you will be, partners with us for a really long time. Some of you are just sort of starting to get used to it. So there'll be some great resources and tips to help you out as well. But a little bit of a background on me, I actually came from 12 years in hospitality before IT. So if you'd told me back in 2013 that I would end up in the IT industry, I would have been quite surprised. But having a kid and working weekends, it changed things for sure. So I actually started as a bookkeeper for a small break fix company, an IT company, then worked for a couple of managed service companies as well before coming to work for Access4. So a little bit about me, and on the call with me today, I've got Joachim as well.
Hey all, you may know me as your account manager, or some of you may know me as your account manager. Similarly to Grace, I actually also started in hospitality and have been in the industry for about 1 year today, actually. So this is quite a fun little day for an anniversary. I had some previous stints with some SDL work and BDM work, and now I'm here as your partner success coordinator, taking you through this slideshow.
Thanks, Joachim. Right, great. Well, let's look back on where it all began. So unified communications obviously is our day-to-day. It's where we play in all the time. For a lot of you on the call, it is part of what you do. So I'll take you through a bit of a timeline. So before I dive into what you're seeing here in front of you, I'll take you back a little bit of a step before we even hit the 2000s. So the deregulation in the market in Australia actually happened in 1997. So that actually shifted the chokehold monopoly. That's probably a strong term to use, but the monopoly for sure in the industry. So before that, customers really struggled. They couldn't retain their numbers if they moved their services away. So the deregulation really created a lot of competition in the market, drove down prices, gave customers access to a variety of tools. Part of that deregulation was actually Telstra had to provide access to their network at fair and reasonable prices. So it really was the beginning of the voice industry as we know today. Chatting to the head of channel, which is who I report into, he has been in the industry for a really long time. And he sort of said to me as well, that's realistically where everyone sort of started, unless you were working for Telstra. We all remember Y2K, so most of us will remember having to turn off our computers before midnight. Nothing to do with voice really, but just to give some context about how far we've come in the 25 years of technology advancement. Touching on 2005, so I don't know if everyone had dial-up back in those days, but 56 kilobits per second wasn't really conducive to having great VoIP services, but it is where the very early days of VoIP started. And a lot of places were still using, businesses were using PABX systems, so SIP trunking adoption grew quite a bit, but reliability and internet bandwidth sort of held back the go-to-market for VoIP at that point. 2011 rolled around, the NBN rollout sort of happened across Australia. Some places were really lucky and got those services really early. I was not one of them. I was in regional Queensland at the time, so it took a little bit for us to get the technology where we were. But those really addressed the reliability and the bandwidth concerns. So you start to see that space grow a little bit. 2016 and 2019, video conferencing started to surface. So mobile applications made talk from anywhere possible as well. So businesses could own the directed dials that their staff were calling out of, but they could use the applications while they were on the road. So it was the beginning period of that. Video conferencing, we all started to use sort of Microsoft Teams, maybe without connecting the voice component, but it became part of our business suite that we used. 2020 and 2021, I'm sure if we never hear the word pandemic again, everyone will be very happy. But it did force a rapid adoption of UC. MSPs were really key in this period of time. You guys really guided your customers through, the backlog of getting even headsets or handsets at the time was quite difficult for businesses, getting things implemented and installed. And UC gave you tools that you could do largely remotely. 2022 to 2023, the final stages of the copper shutdown sort of occurred. And for those businesses that didn't adopt UC during COVID, they found themselves scrambling to update their communication tools. There was also the telecommunications consumer protection codes, so TCP. They were updated and it increased the obligations for telcos and MSPs on service delivery, outage communications, and complaint handling, which is all really good for the consumer and the businesses that affects. Looking at some historical and projected growth. So thinking about where we've been and what the growth has been, but where it's projected to go, and obviously there's global stats. But the compound annual growth rate is 19.8, which is a very solid rate of growth. And if you'd like to know how that stacks up against your other core offerings, so things like SaaS or your security offerings, anything that you're offering, I really encourage you to go and have a look at some reports and research that's done on CAGR. It's actually a really interesting comparison. But big growth coming. So next we'll look at some 2025 trends. So we know where we've been, but what is happening now? The biggest buzzword I think I have heard in the industry has to be AI. It's everywhere. Everyone wants it. But what does it actually distill down to? And the conversations I hear are, how's it going to save me more time? How's it going to give me consistency? How's it going to improve my end customers' experience when they talk to my team? So we've got lots of tools available to you now, lots of new products. Obviously, not enough time to go through all of them on today's deck, but I'd really encourage you to talk to your account managers like Joachim, or if anyone else is looking after you, they can go into a little bit more detail. But these are the things that your customers are looking for. One of the biggest things I've noticed is, how do I get a touch point with a customer? When I'm having a conversation, how do I enter that data into multiple systems, whether it's my ticketing system, whether it's my CRM tool? How do I drive actions from it, like, creating an email or lodging a ticket? How can I make my workflows more automated so I can get more time back in my day? Funnily enough, a conversation I actually came off the back of this morning, so today, was a partner asking, the wrap-up time after a call for my triage team. They have really busy times. How can I minimize that? How can I link them to, IT Glue, where they're entering their data? How can I make their experience really seamless? So this gives you a little bit of insight. It's very, very high level, of course, but that's what I'm seeing. Now, I don't spend as much time on the tools anymore as Joachim. I look after a team of people, So I will throw to him and he can tell you a little bit more about the conversations he's been having.
Yeah, thanks, Grace. So, excuse me, what I'm seeing through my discussions with partners, it tends to be moving towards conversation of integrations and how we can integrate their systems into one package. Usually, these conversations are started by the conversation of AI. It is this shiny new toy, it is in everyone's front of mind. But during the qualifying process, we're actually seeing that customers are looking to improve their efficiencies in their workflow. They want to do that just to be able to allow for a more seamless customer experience. A lot of the time, the assumption is that AI alone is what's able to achieve this, but in reality, managing to integrate all of their ticketing systems, CRMs, and other sorts of software into one platform is what provides them that efficiency and therefore improvement in customer experience.
Yeah, you had a great example on, click to dial. There's a couple of
Mhm.
different options that we offer here for the different pieces that you see up here, and some are focused on, those older system integrations, some are focused on newer system integrations. So I wonder if you could tell me us just a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so specifically with that click to dial customer, we actually had a customer that we won on Access4 recently. They were using an old legacy CRM system that was tied to their on-prem solution. The major concern when they were moving across to us was that they wanted a cloud host solution, but their CRM wasn't allowing click to dial natively. So their customer support team was calling around 100 people a day and physically typing out on a dial pad those numbers every single time, all day, every day, day after day, Monday to Friday. Now, working with the customer, we managed to provide a solution with our GoCara integrator that is essentially able to put an overlay and read the numbers off the screen and provide a click to dial functionality for an on-prem CRM for that customer service team, meaning the time that it's taking to actually click to dial and talk to the customers is drastically reduced. But not only that, because we're already working with GoCara, we managed to integrate other aspects of that. For example, incoming calls. So being able to address the customer the moment that they come in with their name and bring up any sort of notes and information on the customer also improves that customer experience rather than having to ask, hey, who are you? Where are you calling from? Et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, and look, not every customer is going to be in the same journey and we feel, I think in our world sometimes, like we've been living in the cloud for so long, it can be surprising when, you come across customers that aren't. I mean, this particular customer was in the manufacturing industry, so it does make sense that, they're a little bit slower to adopt cloud technology. But on the back of that too, I think it raises a really good point, is that the adoption of new technology while not losing the existing productivity that they may have in certain areas. They know that they've got problems to solve, but changing everything overnight can feel really intimidating. So there are some sales strategies that you can come from that we'll talk a little bit more about in future slides. But I think that sort of highlights a good conversation that we'll have in a little while. So moving into the next slide. So, you'll see this style of slide throughout the presentation today. So the four little diamonds on the right-hand side. So just some tips that you can take back to your team. So with positioning statements, when I'm coaching my own team, it's what do we believe in when we're delivering solutions? How well do we know the problems that we're solving for our customers? So positioning statements, not sure if any of you are using them. There's going to be some resources at the end of the session that will make available to you. So everywhere from, the lead generation, problems are solving. There's a playbook as well that we'll make available to you. But where we usually start when we're coaching the team here is positioning statements. Do you understand what the product actually does or the problem that it's solving for the end customer, not just from our lens? So use whatever statements you would like to. I won't read them all out here today, but it's that when I have conversations with my customers, how do I feel about what we provide them? And that can be a really great place to start. So next, let's look at, so we know that there's a huge wave of change coming. We know that AI is driving massive changes in the industry. We know that customers are looking to solve different challenges, but there are segments of the market that you probably have some of these customers in your portfolio and they are primed. So not just for on-prem changes to do with the telephony, they've probably got a host of on-prem solutions, particularly things like on-prem servers. And here at Access4, obviously, we live and breathe voice. It's our absolute world. But we know that our partners often offer multiple solutions. So it's good for on-prem voice or updating of services. Repurpose where you can anything that we've put together for you. If you're going to have conversations with your customer about an on-prem physical PBX system, then that's a perfect time to talk about all the on-prem that they have or all of the devices that they need to update. They may not need to do it all at once. It's a good conversation to have. So I'm seeing a lot of medical come through. There's really been a huge shift. And I'd say probably in the last 18 months, particularly, a lot of medical practices who have really had dug their heels in with keeping everything on site, on-prem. They're shifting more and more to the cloud, which is great to see. Retail as well. They interact with customers online now. There's a whole host of reasons why they need to be in the cloud. Legal, if you told me, so I come from a managed print and managed IT background, if you told me legal would stop printing or, stop on-prem services, I probably would have laughed at you in 2018 and 2019. But obviously, post-pandemic, everything needs to be far more accessible. So definitely seeing some big opportunities here as well. And then hospitality too. So, think of those hotel rooms where, they all have the dumb phone that sits there. There's definitely big changes that are happening in that industry as well. Education is a big one, and also financial services. So if you have any of the customers in here and you're not already talking to them about updating their on-prem, that is a great place for you to start. So let's take you through what we are seeing. So some insights into, conversations that we have with different partners. Before I go into that, Joachim, obviously I'm not monitoring the chat. Is there any questions or anything we need to answer?
No, not as of yet. We're all good to go.
Perfect. All right, let's jump in. So what we're seeing, so in the world that we work in, I'm seeing, partners are often completely taken by surprise when their customer is moving their services away. Obviously, we only see a small piece of it. It's only the telephony, but that does tend to come as a surprise. So a port out notification happens. They didn't realize that the customer was even in the market to look around. So what I would say to this is those proactive conversations, customers sometimes assume that, they might have an advocate in the business that has seen something that they really like. So those conversations progress behind the scenes without really you being aware. They may have someone approach them. So, having those proactive conversations can just help shore up your customer base. The other thing I would say, with the purchase of Channel UC recently, so there was quite a lot of products added to the Access4 product suite, but contact center has been a big one. And when we talk about the ability to integrate and, have sentiment analysis and all those sorts of things, they may not want to integrate with WhatsApp and web chat and all those things right now, but they want the peace of mind that they've partnered with someone that if and when they need those things, they can come to you. But again, I would say proactively go to them. The other thing that I think collectively, when we did our internal training, the jaw drop moment for us was, particularly for me, I'd always thought of contact center as being this big, expensive thing. Nobody uses them except for, the 100-seat plus clients. It's for, it's for the big end of town. So it's quite surprising actually to sit in training when we first purchased Channel UC and realize that actually the typical seat size is 15. So it may not be a 15-seat organization, might be a 50 or a 30 or a 20-seat organization, but there's a part of their business that's really high call volume. Think doctors' surgeries, very high call volume periods of time throughout the day. So 15 seats is actually the average there. We've talked about CRM integrations. That's becoming more and more important. Definitely a common conversation. I think I've sat in 3 sessions this week where we've been talking. It's really been driven by that conversation. Customer experience is also becoming increasingly important. Competition is rife everywhere in every industry. So the customer experience and consistency of what your team members are delivering, having coaching, having proactive reporting that comes through to you that flags when something's a little bit off. Maybe there was language that was used. Maybe, your team member was rude, or the flip side of that coin is maybe your customer was really rude to your staff, and maybe that needs to be dealt with. So having that where it's not you going hunting for it. I'll tell you about the conversation I had with a partner this morning. So he's looking for a contact center for himself. And he said, currently I spot check call recordings. And it's a little bit like throwing a dart at a wall and really hoping that I hit a bullseye. I might find a little thread and then go digging for more information, and maybe I'll find a pattern of behavior that's very labor intensive. What I'm really looking for is, a dashboard that shows me that I can then go dig into. I want to know that that is compliant, that, if sensitive information is discussed, that I'm meeting my compliance obligations. So these are the things that we are seeing from customers and partners that are important. I'm sure as you travel on your journey with us, you're going to come across more. So I'd really encourage you to talk to your account managers about this, because more often than not, we've probably had a similar conversation in our world.
Yeah, that's right. Specifically with that AI transcription summaries, it allows the supervisors to be able to jump in with their agents, have these discussions on how to improve. But not only that, it rewards the agents that are actually doing great with positive sentiment analysis.
Yeah, lots and lots of time saved. Human resources are definitely ex bookkeeper that I am is the biggest part of any budget. So any way that we can maximize how well they're trained and minimize the time that they're spent doing. Admin's not useless, but there's more effective things that they could be doing, more customer interactions that they could be having. So definitely important. Well, if there's no questions, I'll keep going. So I'll just check in with you, Joachim.
Yep, all good for now.
Perfect. So the next part of it, we've sort of come through, we've seen where the industry's been and where it's got to. What are the hot topics for your customers, what we are seeing? Now I'll take you through a bit of strategy and some sort of material that you can take away as well. So starting with the customer buying cycle. So, where your customers probably came to you for voice in the beginning, this isn't just relating to voice, but they go through a discovery phase. So they may not be doing that with you at this stage. They may be looking elsewhere. So they go through a discovery phase. They figure out, I've got all these challenges to solve. How do you solve them? Then there's the honeymoon phase. So the excitement comes when, we've solved all the problems. Everything's new, everything's fresh. The years go on and the technology kind of gets out of step, or they've had changes to their team and that hasn't kind of kept up. Their requirements have changed. Maybe the departments have gotten bigger. People have left, people have come. The knowledge of how the technology works, you did all this wonderful training in the beginning. That's kind of left with other people that have left. So there's a frustration that's sort of simmering away, whether we understand it, that they're going through that experience or not. Then there's a reevaluation phase. So super important, we capture those customers as they're going through that. There's lots of stats out there to say that customers, when they have a negative experience, don't always leave CSAT. It's the same when they're looking for new solutions as well. So definitely capture the reevaluation phase early. So look for 6-month out contract renewals, those sorts of things. QBRs where you're asking questions, making sure that, are you happy? How is it working for you? Do you have new challenges? All of those good things. And then we look at your sales approach. So I've worked in MSPs and worked with MSPs for long enough to know, I think the better way of saying sales approach is, how do you approach problems to solve? How do you find solutions for your customers? So sales can be, none of us want to be a used car salesman, but we do want to make sure that we're bringing solutions to customers to solve real problems that they have. So we always start with existing customer white space. So of your customers, who doesn't have all of the things that you offer, but they need some of of the gaps, they need some of those. So start with the customer white space. And then, you've exhausted that list. Everyone's pretty up to date. Everyone has what they need. New client acquisition. So the cost to acquire new business is pretty high. At Access4, we run our own acquisition team. So there's lots and lots of lead generation that goes into that. Lots of money gets spent, but it's always good to do. You want to have organic growth. You want to have your brand out there, and you want new clients coming in so that you can grow your business as well. So both approaches have their place. And then from an Access4 perspective, you've got a top-down or a bottom-up approach. So what I mean by that is top-down would be the core telephony. So a customer is coming to the end of their contract. They're in the buying window. They're not super happy. They know that it's going to be a bit of a retraining for the team, and there'll be some teething problems, but they are ready to move, and they want to completely redo their core telephony. Maybe they might wrap around some features at the same time, or they may want that sentiment analysis and reporting and dashboarding later, but they know that you've got it. The bottom-up approach is where you may have a whole host of customers who, perhaps you yourselves have sold different voice technology over the years, and you're not quite ready to shift that core telephony away. If it's not broken, don't fix it. That's fine. They're happy where they are, but they want that coaching. They want sentiment analysis. Well, the big change for Access4 is Channel UC had a slightly different model to us, where we do a lot and have always done a lot of top-down approach. Core telephony was our focus, and then wraparound products. Channel UC was the opposite. So we've brought the best of two together. So there's a lot of products that work natively in Teams, for example, that are now in your portfolio, where you can go in and give them advanced reporting, which I think 28 days is the retention policy for reporting in Teams. So, you can enhance their experience without having to shift their core telephony, which is great. So whichever works for you, just know that you've got products that will fit, they'll be compatible. There's a number of core telephony that those are compatible with. So I think Microsoft Teams is a big one. Think 3CX, think Telstra, think Optus. So
Yeah, it's a really good point. Specifically with the top-down approach, I actually had a customer recently that mostly just works with Teams native builds, a lot of Teams Channel and Teams Operator Connect. At the moment, they're currently setting up their customer with Call Cabinet and Clobber, which is that sentiment analysis and AI transcription. And it's such a powerful tool that you can just plug into Teams, which allowed them to actually take the rest of their team stack afterwards. So rather than going from the bottom up, they provide them the solution of sentiment analysis, and then the customer went on to give them the whole Teams channel.
And it can be far less jarring for the customer and their users as well. Perfect. One thing I will leave you with on this slide is, and I pinched this from the conference deck that we ran last September. So this is within our base. So the account managers work with partners all the time. We sort of have a good gauge of how many customers are on our network versus how many customers they have. What we found was 60% of partners have a 20% penetration rate. So the majority haven't sort of gone to market for voice. And that might be for a majority of reasons being, perhaps changing that core telephony was actually quite challenging. 30% have a 50% penetration rate, and there's only 10% that have 80. So generally speaking, there's lots of white space to be had. You'll know your customers better than we do, but they are a much warmer acquisition, and you've already got visibility of the networks. If voice is a new product to you, and all the add-ons and wraparound products, I mean, no doubt they'll be new to you. So they are the warmer clients to work with on those projects. So whichever sales approach you use, we'll go through kind of some steps for both existing customers and client acquisition. So this is just an example. You will categorize your clients however you choose. When we work with partners on go-to-market planning here at Access4, fully managed clients, or those clients that have voice or have the majority of the services that you sell, that's kind of where they would fit in the A's. They're the best of the best. They're the ones you love to work with. I'm sure you love to work with all of them, but they're the ones that pay really well. They are really stable. They're great customers. So they're the cream of the crop. The ones in the Bs tend to have, a couple of agreements with you. They might have your core managed service agreement, but maybe they're missing a hosting agreement here or a security hardening agreement there. And they're sort of in your hit list to go after to secure their solution. They are a great one to work with for, the nurturing campaigns. Go and give them a call. There's specific sort of engagement strategies that we have used with partners. And then the Cs, we would call them kind of your ad hoc customers, more like, they might buy domain hosting from you. You may have inherited them over the years. Maybe they were on a time and materials many, many years ago, but don't really interact with you a great deal. They are still great for nurturing campaigns. They might be a bit of a sleeping giant, or they've got, a bigger opportunity than you realize. But the touch points and the strategy is a little bit different. So best place to start for new client acquisition, and I'm sure all of you are probably doing most of these, so I won't tell you how to suck eggs, but I will tell you a little bit about the branding awareness drive that we did. So between particularly 2021, in my time with Access4, I started here when it was 29 people, so we're up over 110 now. There wasn't a lot of networking event opportunities at the time, but once we sort of started to see those return and we could all get out of the house and actually see people, which was great. The best place to go and make relationships and see people was at the industry events that you were all interested in being in. So if it's a medical industry or if it's a legal practice, not only do they all talk to each other, so a referral program is great. They refer work to you, you refer work to them potentially. They might get rewarded with a couple of project hours here and there, whatever that looks like for you. But our strategy at Access4 has always been meet up with people, shake hands, bump elbows, whatever we're doing at the time, but sit down and have those real conversations with them. And then, of course, we've grown in size now. So we have the wonderful Jing in marketing, and, we've got blog posts and lots of things, lots of marketing activity now that we didn't have back then. So depending on your size, just know Access4 is not this big, massive conglomerate. It has gone through probably a similar journey and scale that you yourselves have. So lots of good information to share with you. Next, we'll go through how to prepare. So equip your sales team for success. And this kind of summarizes some of the conversations that we've had so far. So understand the changes. New technology is great, but what does it actually achieve? So, coaching, saving them time, be really clear on what the changes actually mean, and use that to sharpen your solution selling skills. So, no one wants to take a product to market and just hammer it like a used car salesman. We actually really want to be solving problems. So, if your techs and your salespeople and your leadership team know exactly what problems they're solving, that solution selling actually comes really, really naturally. integrate into existing processes. So, a lot of you may have quarterly business reviews that you do, or 2025 strategy planning for, updating their hardware, updating their security, whatever the case may be. Just feed it into that, ask a couple of questions about the voice. Update your sales playbooks. So we'll share a playbook with you, so you've got a bit of a head start, and then engage proactively. Experience it firsthand, and I love this one. I sit on so many scoping calls, and the first thing our techs generally do, particularly if it's with a customer, with your consent, of course, is actually call the number. So call as though you were an inbound caller and actually see how your call flows throughout their own system. And preparing for those early conversations, it changes the conversation from going in with a, how does it work? Tell me how you want it to work. It actually goes in a, hey, did you realize that your music on hold, isn't working in this area? Or, I had really long wait times. I sat on hold for like 5 minutes. Is it expected? Whatever you find. So that is actually probably the easiest way, is call the customers, make a note. But otherwise, leverage the Access4 deal support. So all the tools that we use, we make available to you, all of the sales material, etc., and solutions, pre-sales, all that good stuff is all available for you. Next, we'll go through where to start. Some of you being new will have gone through or have just started this process. Those of you that have been with us for a little while may want to refresh. So review your goals. So sit down with us, review your goals, how you want to incentivize your sales staff. We can actually design some incentives and come to the party as well. So Joachim, you can probably attest. We've always got wheeling and dealing happening here.
You've probably heard me tell you all just constantly over and over again.
Excuse me. Don't mind me.
Yeah, whatever I can do to get something across the line, that's what we're here for. Just any sort of support or just incentives for your staff members, your sales staff. You would hopefully have heard of H2 incentive. If you haven't, please feel free to ask me.
Thank you very much, Joachim, saving the day. So prepare, make sure you've got all the resources, make sure the talk tracks, the conversation starters, the positioning statements, whatever it is that your team, they're going to get benefit out of, we can help you put those together. There's lots of marketing material that's already sort of pre-canned for you as well. So you can, I've never met an MSP ever that wasn't super busy. So it just takes some of the heavy legwork out of it for you. Next, assess your existing customer base, and then prioritize. When you do have a bit of time and your sales team have got some calls to make, go and ask this customer, or on your next QBR, pop in these questions. And then once you've quoted all your existing customers, then, work with our marketing team to go after new business. Some other places to start. So some things you might not have thought of. Communications related support tickets. So it's a great opportunity. These customers are already frustrated. They're either frustrated with something that perhaps isn't built correctly, or to be honest with you, you're their trusted advisor. So they could be coming to you and they don't even have voice with you. That is, absolute nirvana. If they do have voice with you, then contracts that are coming up for renewal. So, the MSPs that I worked in had a 3-year contract cycle. Some are 5 years. Some are just rolling because the customer seems to be really happy. So we won't touch them. We'll leave them alone. But run a list of your agreements, have a look, see who's coming up for renewal, and look, they may be out of contract and rolling, but who signed up, around that 3 to 4 mark a go. Again, target those segments of the market where we know they traditionally use on-prem. Start the nurturing campaign, so we'll get those out to you. Get some blog posts out. You will have such a wealth of knowledge when it comes to the technology space, when it comes to, all the challenges that your customers are facing. Where you might sometimes struggle is finding the time to do, LinkedIn posts or blog posts, all those sorts of things, and getting your thought leadership out there. thought leadership is something that we do a fair bit here at Access4. Obviously, we didn't back in the day before we had a team that could do it. So, if you need help with anything, just let us know. So that brings us to the last sort of part of the webinar. So again, thank you everyone for joining us here today. Super excited to have you all. I'll take you through some tips and resources that will really help your team. Anyone have any questions? We'll just have a quick look. Like everyone's good. Fabulous. Okay. So another way that you can approach UC is embed UC opportunity questions in every customer interaction. So, the initial reaction to this might be, I'm not going to get a billing team member to ask telephony questions. Totally makes sense. I completely get it. But where it might be relevant is, a billing query comes through and the customer's like, I don't understand my bill. It's really hard to read, and that might trigger for you. How can we make that better? How can we present it better? And Access4 has got some great tools to do that. So work these in where you can. Tickets, have a quick conversation in your stand-ups with your service desk. Just be like, look, we're starting to do this drive. There's a couple of questions. It might be as simple as, are you happy with your current telephony solution? Do we look after you for that? For a tech, that might be as much as you ask them to do. For those sales staff that are actually proactively calling different, they might, just actually go into a bit more detail. But however you like, just putting it out there that implementing that into every interaction could be good. And you might roll these out. So, okay, we're pushing voice, obviously, because we're a voice vendor, but you might do security 1 week or for a month or, whatever works across the board for you. In the playbook, so there's some slides in there about, proven strategies that we've seen. We've done 1-pagers and incentive drives with partners to go out to market and offer to their customers. So Joachim's on the call, and the more he sells, the more he gets paid. So, I'm only saying that because it's your partner's on the call, Joachim, but if there's something that we can build for you, he's done it a lot in the past, so use that. And the other two is sort of about thought leadership as well. But to give you some oversight, we're in the process of lifting and shifting our resource center at the moment. So you'll see some linked resources here, and you'll see some that aren't. What we will do is we'll put together the resource pack for you where there's no links, and we'll send those out to you. In terms of the Strive and online classroom events, these can all be found in SaaSboss in Strive. So with the newer products, you won't see all of them in here just yet, but for things like UC Paid, where there's compliance changes coming in March around, and I'm sure we've sent out a ton of information on that, but UC Paid, make sure that they can take credit card payments over the phone and be compliant. So there will be more to come from Strive very soon on the very, very new products, not new to Channel UC, but new to Access4. And then your team would probably benefit from sitting in on some classroom events, if and when you're ready.
We did actually have a quick question from Dan regarding sentiment analysis and who do we talk to regarding training and setup. I think in regards to setup, it might be a good time to introduce professional services that Access4 is offering.
Yeah.
Would you like to speak more about that?
Yeah, I can certainly do that. So obviously very large growing product set here at Access4. Something that we have never done before is professional services. So offering professional services to go and build out some of these solutions, whether that be for you internally or it be for customers. So it just means that, telephony may not be a core product for you, but it's a core product for us. So you can leverage really a high-skilled team to not only do the deployment, but also do the end user training, which is something really great that Access4 has never offered. So there'll be more to come on that, but to specifically answer around sentiment analysis, highly recommend that you get a bit of a discovery call happening because there's a few options available to you, and we probably just want to narrow down the field. The next thing I would say, you want to see it. So actually see it, touch it, feel it, you know, and get a bit of a not for resale. So get some great pricing on that. So have a demo, cut down your options, and then actually deploy a not for resale so that you can use it. Drink your own champagne, eat your own dog food, whatever statement you want to say, but then your team can actually experience it.
Are there any other questions? Looks like we're all good on that front.
Perfect. Well, thank you very much for coming along today. Thoroughly enjoyed taking you through that. We are really excited about lots of opportunity in the voice space. So make sure you speak to your account managers, ask lots of questions, ping them on Teams, give them a call, shoot them an email, send a carrier pigeon, however you communicate. But we are here to help you. Thanks again, everyone.
All right, thank you all.